Howdy folks, and today we're looking at how to paint Raptadon Chargers for Age of Sigmar. So first of all, you want to prime your models black. After you've done that, you want to do a white highlight, and you're just doing that from the top. And you're doing that on the riders as well as the Raptadons themselves. After that, we're going to be using some light sea blue, and then we're just painting all of our skinks in that colour. Just to speed up the process, you do it separately. So underbellies of the Raptadons we're going to be doing with sand beige, and we're just doing that for all of our Raptadons. So just make sure to get it on their faces as well as the underbelly. You can check the GW website just to see what it's meant to be like roughly. And now we're moving on to using hot orange, and we're just doing that on the upper upper section of the Raptadon Chargers. I've decided to add another colour to it, so we're hitting a line between the hot orange and the sand beige, and we're using carrot orange. On the feet of them, we're going to be using sea grey. And for like their little fins and their crest on the top, we're using fire red. So that's the stage we're at now. I think it looks good so far. So we have decided now to move on back to our skinks, and here we're using Hexglitch Purple from Vallejo. And we're just doing that on the feathers as well as like their spears. So now we're basically adding a little bit of white to the Hexglitch that we had in our airbrush already, and then we're doing that several times by adding more and more white to it. And you can do that as many times as you like. In this instance, I believe I've done it 3 or 4 times. You just add a bit more white and leave the previous area unpainted, add a bit more white and leave the previous area unpainted. Hope that sort of makes sense anyway. So now we're painting in all of the gold parts, and that's on our skinks as well as on our Raptadons, and we're using Retributor armor for that. If unsure where you're meant to use gold, just go on the GW website and have a look. Have a look at their pictures for reference, or if you've got the book, that's even better. You can just open it and just have that alongside whilst you're working on the models. The ropes on the Raptadons, we're going to be using Rhinox hide. Sorry, if it seems like I'm a little bit slow in terms of thinking what paints I haven't got them written down. It's literally all from memory. And the shading we're doing on the gold with Reikland Flesh Shade. I've decided to also use Reikland Flesh Shade on the chest of the Raptadon, just to add a bit more depth to his chest. Now these guys aren't going to be part of my army, as I don't play Age of Sigmar, but I think they still look cool, and they're very cool models. I am painting a different version of these guys with a different coloured steed. So going to be a green coloured steed. So that's going to be the ones that I'm using for the old world. For the base, we're just using some Astra Granite. The scales of the skinks we're painting with Gulliman Blue. Now that is a colour that GW doesn't make anymore, so there are other alternatives which you could use. Shading the base with Nuln Oil. Now you can thin this down with some thinner, depends how strong you want the the shading to be. Here I'm using some Mechanicum Standard Grey, and these are like for the bands that are on the tail. And then we're doing a dry brush all over their, all over their scully faces with Tyrant Skull. The nails for them, we're using Rhinox Hide, so the same colour that we were using for the ropes. The eyes on this fella are done using Avalon Sunset, and we're using Avalon Sunset on the riders as well. The crests on the skinks, I have decided to go for Mephiston Red and just thin that down a little bit. And the tongues, we're going to be using Screamer Pink. The feathers on the head are done using Abaddon Black, thinned down. And I have also decided to use bright orange as the other feather colour, just to add a little bit of variety. Now here we're just using some thinned down Nuln Oil, and we're just putting that on any of the grey parts that we've done on our model. The claws are done with Zandri Dust. Recommend thinning this down and just generally thinning your paints in general. So all of the gold parts we're now using Reichland Flesh Shade, and we're just shading those in now to add a bit of depth to our model. So here I'm just doing the tongue again with the Screamer Pink. I must have missed out one of the models, so I ended up going back and doing the tongue. It happens sometimes if you're working on a lot of models, you can miss out on those little bits and bobs. Don't worry about it though, you can always go back to it. The highlight on the teeth I am doing with a Shabti Bone, and that is a colour from Citadel. So here we're just using some PVA, putting some on the base and then just flocking our bases. You can use any colour flock that you like, but I'm just using what I've got, so just making do with what I've got. So the little balls on their weapons, I am using Sea Grey just to basically colour those in like that. The rim of the bases are done using Abaddon Black. Here I'm just using some thinned down Agrex Earthshade and just putting that all over the claws and teeth of our model. We're then moving on to doing a highlight on our claws, and we're using our Shabti Bone. decided to use to add a bit of depth to our eyes, and here I am using Gulliman Blue. The highlight on our crest, we're using Vermilion, followed by a highlight of Flash Gits Yellow on the eyes of the Raptidons. So here I'm using a small dry brush and using Jacaro Orange as a dry brush colour on the bright orange feathers, followed by a highlight of light grey from Vallejo. So the gems are done using Corn Red, followed by Mephiston Red highlight. And that's what you've just seen in that video. The highlights on the gold, we're using Auric Armor Gold, followed by Liberator Gold, followed by Stormhost Silver on all the sharpest edges. Take your time with it, it will make the model look really, really good. Obviously not forgetting about the Raptadon, as he's got some of those dangly gold bits as well. For the next highlight of the gem, we're using Rhinox Hide, and that's in the upper right corner of the model. And here I'm just putting a white dot where we've just done the Rhinox Hide brown. In the upper left corner you can also do an optional orange highlight. So yeah, that's the Raptidons now done to a tabletop standard, and I think you and your opponent will both be happy having those on the battlefield, smashing apart the foes. Thank you very much for watching, really appreciate a like and a subscribe, really means a lot to me, it means I can carry on doing those videos for you guys. See ya!